Thank you very much. The technical issues as usual. Thank you very much, Jane, for the introduction, and good afternoon, everyone, and good evening. For those who are joining from Beijing and China, I think it's pretty late, and very appreciate that, and including our speakers today. It's a great pleasure to be the first speaker of this webinar series regarding China's role in Africa's green energy transition. I think we have a fantastic turnout today and already show how important the topic is. So in order to save time for our Chinese speakers, Chinese experts who are actually working in the front line in developing, financing, and consulting these renewable energy projects in Africa, I would like to just very briefly to have an overview of Chinese current involvement in Africa's renewable energy markets, particularly wind and solar energy market, and to provide some just contextual background and just like a warm-up exercise I think will be a very fantastic discussion later on. We mainly focus on wind and solar energy today. I think the justification is that there are not just kind of a new trends that we just spotted in the recent years compared to other energy sources like fossil fuels, like coal-fired or hydropower stations or even nuclear power stations, but also because renewables are more or less like, in my language, it's like most like a silver bullet for various reasons. First, if you look at the resources, wind and solar resources in Africa, it's not that just that they're abundant, but are actually compared to other energy resources that are evenly distributed among large number of countries who might benefit from renewable energy projects later on. And also the projects will produce locally produced energy and output that the countries don't have to import, for example, like fossil fuels like diesel or even like hydropower generations. And the technology, comparatively speaking, compared to nuclear industries, are kind of simpler, and also they are getting cheaper. And another advantage is that they're clean, obviously, and also the marginal cost of wind and solar resource is very low, and can be as nearly as low as zero, because they're largely free, isn't it? Another feature of renewables is that they're flexible. It can be a kind of 500 megawatts, 600 megawatts, even gigawatts level projects, but it can be as small as 20 or 30 kilowatts projects, off-grid, mini-grid, you name it. So, but with all these advantages, the challenge is also big, is that in order to achieve SDG 7 of universal energy access, which means that a huge amount of investment are needed. It's according to IEA, it's about 5 times of current investment level or finance level. Around 2 trillion will be needed by 2040. And the other challenge, obviously, is technology is not, particularly in the areas of energy storage and in the areas of smart grid transmission and so on. These technology challenges cannot be ignored. The last one, and often overlooked one, is the institutional capacity that are needed both in public and private sectors that can support large amount of renewable energy facilities that need to be developed. There are a lot of capacity building are needed. So who can provide and how to provide the financial, technological, and the institutional support that are needed for African green energy transition? Obviously, China emerged as a suitable candidate for various reasons. But one is that domestically, China has already developed as a kind of a champion for green energy arrays. Look at the domestic capacity; they grow in the past 15 years like a drama, and from ground zero nearly to over 400 gigawatts already. I think last year, in terms of solar, is even more dramatic. Last year, China has over 30 gigawatts installed. It's bigger than the European EU and the US combined. And the accumulative capacity is also kind of a more or less the same with the EU and the US combined. But it's not just the market potential we're talking about, market size we've been talking about. The technology advanced along with market growth. As you can see now, there's the top 10 solar companies, solar panel producers. Only 2 of them are not from China. And even if you look at Canadian solar, actually the founder is a Chinese, Canadian Chinese citizen. But if you look at the top 15 to 20, again, most of the companies are actually Chinese companies in solar sector. In wind sector, it's more or less the same. 5 out of 10 top producers are from China as well. And if you look at from 11 to 15, top 11 to 15 companies, again, you can find another 2 or 3 Chinese companies there. So competition, the technology competition is intense, and the technological iteration is intense. That's another situation, advantages or the potentials for China's contribution in Africa as well. And in terms of China's engagement with Africa's power sector, we tend to believe that, many people tend to believe that China is a new player, which is not actually the case. The first Chinese hydropower station dated back to the 1960s, actually before the Cultural Revolution. It's in Guinea, it's called King Kong hydropower station, and developed by Power China. Our next speaker is from Power China. So it is just the kind of in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, when China focused back to its domestic economic development, it's like its engagement with African electricity market is kind of disrupted, but it was resumed under Jiang Zemin's era when the going out strategy was announced, and later on, of course, the scale of the investment or the scale of energy activities was even bigger under President Xi Jinping's grand ambition of Belt and Road initiatives. So as you can see, since 2000, you can see a very dramatic increase of the amount of projects. We don't have official figure, but we estimate it is between about 160 to 200 projects altogether, around 30 to 40 billion US dollars. But I would like to highlight that the progress is not that kind of linear. As you can see, there are ups and downs in 2009, 2003, and 2013. It shows in 2009, it's easy to explain. It's a financial crisis, but think about 2003 and 2013, the drop is, I think, I don't have data to prove, but I guess it's associated with the changing of leadership in China. So in 2003 is when President Hu Jintao came into power, and in 2013 is the time when President Xi Jinping came into power. It shows that how domestic situations and international situations are actually interlinked with Chinese investment or Chinese engagement with African market. That is another lesson we can learn. So very briefly about a kind of new small database we have developed during our recent studies with Frenton, I think, who is also in our audience today. Renewable energy policy used to play a very small role in the project pipeline among the around 200 projects, but it's getting, obviously, it's increasing. We now have around more than 20 projects across 10 countries. It's in Western, Eastern, and Southern part of Africa now. And the total capacity is exceeding 3 gigawatts. And it's not just the number of projects, but look at the size of individual projects. They're going into 2 directions. Some are getting bigger. We have 500, 600 megawatts projects in different countries, but some are getting smaller. We have 20 or even less than 20 megawatts projects developed by small companies, private companies, Chinese companies that very few people heard of. Whereas the bigger projects are often carried out by state-owned enterprises. But often we also, nowadays we see the cooperation Between SOEs and the private companies, they call it kind of going out together, or 抱团出海, something like that. So and such kind of a cooperation in renewable energy sectors is also kind of a new phenomenon. And it's not, and also in terms of project types, previously Chinese projects mainly dominated by the model, so model or EPC plus finance model. The finance was provided by mainly Chinese state-owned banks like China Exim, China Development Bank, and supported by export credit agencies. But now we see kind of a few project finance deals are ongoing as well. So it can open up a kind of a new trend when, particularly I'll explain that EPC plus finance plus the sovereign guarantee model can face a lot of difficulties in the era of COVID-19 or in the post-COVID-19 era. So I just kind of very quickly go through my questions in my hand before I stop and open up for the future for the next speakers. First is that how keen I think whether Chinese there's a lot of echo here. I can hear myself, but okay. Can we witness China's kind of export of its domestic success to some of African countries? I think the answer lies in about the following three factors. The first is that how enthusiastic of Chinese companies really are in engaging African wind and solar markets. Just an interesting comparison is that, for example, in Myanmar, recently they finished a kind of a solar procurement program. 30 projects, 29 of the 30 are actually awarded by the Chinese companies. The first bidders are Chinese companies. That shows the level of enthusiasm of Chinese companies in engaging markets in Myanmar. But do we have the same level of enthusiasm in African market? Probably not. So what are the differences? Because previously we've been talking about always the competition between trade-offs between renewables and the conventional energy projects. It's no longer the case. African markets are competing with Asian markets or competing with Eastern Europe markets to secure deals or to negotiate deals with Chinese enterprises. And the second is how innovative the financial institutions can be. As I said, the previous dominant model is EPC plus financing model, which often requires a sovereign guarantee, which could be more and more difficult to get after COVID-19. And also, as I said, there's a diversity of renewable energies, it's bigger or small. You know, it's not just about energy state-owned energy utilities, but more about energy cooperatives, rising, you know, entrepreneurs, how to deal with these actors, how to secure deals with them is depending on how flexible the finance model to match up the flexibility or diversity of business model. So that's another challenge. The third challenge is that we see a lot of high-level diplomatic relations and events going on, and at the same time, kind of at a micro level, at project level, a lot of enterprises are engaging. The meso level engagement between Chinese regulators, for example, with African energy regulators, to engage with African local communities or local chiefs or local officers are kind of lacking. Who from the Chinese side would like to do that or should be responsible to do that, to kind of fill this void of middle level engagement to kind of as a kind of a nurturing more projects opportunities in the future? It is another challenge, I think, in my point of view. Sorry, I have to throw all these questions here, and hope some of these can be addressed in our discussions and other speakers talks. And I will stop here, and thank you very much.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear. We can hear you. Yes.
Great. Thank you very much, Wei. Thank you for your very nice presentation. You raised a lot of important questions at the end. I hope we will have a very productive discussion towards the end of the presentations. Now, I would like to invite the second speaker, Dr. Ma Jingtao. Dr. Ma is the Chief Engineering Officer at Power China. He has been developing and consulting and inspecting hydro, wind, and solar energy projects for many years. And he's also the leading expert in Chinese wind and solar technical standard. And so without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Ma to provide the business enterprise perspectives on Chinese engagement in energy sector in Africa. Dr. Ma?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good.
Can I begin?
Yes, please.
Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to have this chance to share some views about the renewable energy business in Africa. My presentation's name is Power China's Renewable Energy Business in Africa. As just mentioned, Power China is a big Chinese company. We engage in the EPC, in the project EPC construction and the planning of the renewable energy project. Here I will give my presentation will include three items. The first, I would give you some introduction about our company. The second,
we didn't see your. Sorry to interrupt, but we didn't see your presentation presentation slides yet. Can you share the screen with us?
Yes. Can you see me now?
We can't. Maybe take a few seconds. But...
Can you see me now?
No, we can't see the slide at the moment. Maybe Martin, can you help by playing the slide, and when Dr. Ma wants to change the slide, we can help with that.
What's wrong with it?
Hi, Wei. Are you able to share these? Because I don't have them.
Okay, can you see me now?
Yes, we can see it now.
We can see them now.
Yes, my topic is Power China's renewable energy business in Africa. The first, I will give some introduction of our company, and the second, I will give some introduction of our business in Africa. And finally, I will give some suggestion about the wind and about the new energy power project business in Africa. Power China is a integrated construction group and provide investment and financing, planning, design, construction, equipment manufacturing, and operation management services for hydraulic electric power project and infrastructure. Our main business covers the following fields, such as energy, electric power construction, project survey and planning, design and constructing, and water ecological environmental protection, development and management of other energy resources. Here you can see some ranking of our company in the recent year. Here are some characteristics of our company. We have a lot of achievement in the past. And now, based on the geographical, cultural, and the legal similarity and the market size, our company has divided the global construction market into 6 regions. That is East and South Africa, Central and West Africa, and the Middle East and North Africa, Eurasia and the Asia Pacific. There are the 6 regional headquarters around the world. I think this can help us to have a good cooperation with the people in the different area. This is here is you can see our business structure and our business model and the services. Power China with the branches company have been rotated in Africa for more than 60 years. We have covered more than 50 Africa countries from initial undertaking of foreign aid construction tasks to now investment in important economic field. We fully played our core ability of understanding water and electricity, deeply involved in the infrastructure construction in Africa, and serve the overall situation of China-Africa cooperation for a long. At the present, Power China has set up we have already set up 3 regional headquarters in Africa to develop a local market and better serve the African market. Up to now, Power China has executed more than 800 project contracts in more than 46 countries in Africa, covering water conservancy, power, transportation, shipping, and housing construction, with a total contract amount of more than 230 billion yuan. Every country is rich in renewable energy resources. Africa continent has near Congo, Zambia, Niger, Senegal, and other world-famous rivers. These rivers also contains rich hydropower resources. The eastern, northwestern, and the south part of African continent are excellent distribution area of wind energy resources. At the same time, we all know Africa has a rich solar resources. So this made a very strong foundation for the African country to develop renewable energy in the whole continent. At present, Power China has built 26 hydropower stations with the total capacity of 15,200 megawatt. Here I want to give you some example. Here I want to give you some example of the project we built in the Africa. The first is Turkish Hydropower Station. Turkish Hydropower project is located in the middle reaches of Turkish River near the city of Megawatt, Ethiopia. The project has functions of water supply, irrigation, water generation, tourism, and other functions. The installed capacity of power station is 300 megawatts, with the total storage capacity is 1.4 billion cubic meter. The project was started on June 26, 2002, and completed in the 2009. The power station was officially put in operation on November 14, 2009. The second example is Lower Kafur Gorge Hydropower Station. The Lower Kafur Gorge Hydropower Station is located in the Kafur River in Zambia. The dam is 16.3 kilometers away from the Upper Kafur Gorge Dam, built in the 1970s.
Sorry, Dr. You have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Okay. I can make some. Here I want to make some introduction about our wind power and the solar power in the Africa. First is Adama Wind Power Project. The Adama Wind Power is in Ethiopia. The total capacity of the project is 204 megawatts. Adama Wind Power Project developer and constructed by our company used an EPC model. This is the first large-scale wind power in Ethiopia. And the next I will introduce this project, Sktm PV project in Algeria. This also is also the first large-scale PV project in the Algeria. Next is the 600 megawatt PV project in Zambia. This is the largest overseas PV project signed by our company. Here is an example about a new kind of renewable energy project, such as CSP project we built in the Morocco. The left one is the parabolic trough CSP project. The other one is the power tower CSP project, both built by our company. Here is from our experience in the business in Africa, we have some suggestion. And first, I want to see Africa's renewable energy is on the eve of booming. The second viewpoint is off-grid PV and multi-energy complementary are important firms to solve the power supply in Africa. The third viewpoint is Power China is willing to work with all kinds of partners and to develop the renewable energy in Africa. Here is my presentation. Thank you for all.
Thank you, Dr. Ma, for your really interesting presentations. I'm sure the participants will have lots of questions on the CSR practice of Power China in Africa. So for now, I would like to invite our third speaker, Mr. Chen Shaoqi. Mr. Chen Shaoqi joined China Export and Credit Insurance Corporations 17 years ago, and he's the Assistant General Manager of Client Relationship and Business Development Department. Mr. Chen has a very rich experience in developing new business strategy to support the newly emerged industries, especially in overseas market. And without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Chen Shaoqi to give his perspective from the financial institution.
Thank you very much. Sorry, something is wrong with my computer. So my colleague, Mr. Liu will share the PPT. Thank you very much. Good morning, dear Dr. Shen and the distinguished guest. I'm Chen Shaoqi from China Export and Credit Insurance Corporation, SanSure. And I'm very honored to be invited by the IDS to present to you our perception and exchange ideas on promoting the renewable energy activities in overseas market, especially in the context of post-COVID-19 recovery. My presentation will include 3 parts, and I will start with who is SanSure. And SanSure is a state-funded, policy-oriented insurance company that supports the development of international trade and economic cooperation by providing export credit insurance products. SanSure is the official export credit agency of China, and we support banks from all over the world to provide the financing, and SanSure provides insurance for the banks. And our main products include medium long-term export credit insurance, overseas investment insurance, short-term export credit insurance, and other, so for example, standard rating. And we have experienced exceptional year-on-year growth while promoting the financing of numerous projects on the world. Our insurance amount have increased steadily and over the past 10 years. And our insurance mounting have surpassed $600 billion for the 2019. $600 billion for the 2019. By the end of the 2019, SanSure has insured over 4.6 trillion, totally 4.6 trillion, and settled over 14 billion claims. And our business extends to more than 220 countries and regions around the world. We partner with more than 215 banks from the Chinese domestically and other foreign banks. With products mentioned, SanSure has been providing the service along the going abroad steps of Chinese enterprise, playing our role of mitigating risks, facilitating financing and expanding markets by providing medium long-term export credit insurance and overseas investment insurance. We support the PV module company and overseas factory in medium stream and distributor, PV power station, even buyers from other countries in the downstreams. And our short-term export credit insurance can be applied for all industry chain process. And the transformation and upgrading of the PV industry has put forward new demands for our products and services on risk mitigation. That's why we have upgraded from a single insurance product to customized solutions. Next, regarding the client base that we support, up to now, the main destination are in Asia and Europe. In terms of the theme of the webinar, focus on the African continent, SunSure attached great importance to the African market and actively participate in the China-Africa Economic and Trade Cooperation. And over the past 10 years, SunSure's business in Africa has extended to many countries by bringing export and projects to this continent, and that benefits the national economy and the people's livelihood. But in the fields of the green energy, based on our past experience, we have found that the cooperation between Chinese enterprise and African countries in this field is still in the initial stage, just as mentioned by Dr. Shen. That means compared to the mature markets in European and Asian countries. And however, SunSure will still seek the potential Africa has. We all know that famous Congo River, the Nile River, the Niger River, and the Zambezi River, but some studies indicate that only less than 10% of the continent's hydropower potential is currently being exploited. In addition, much of African countries have rich solar social energy resources, especially those near the equator and the coastal regions. These regions held great potential for wind, also have wind energy. All I mentioned above indicates that the continent possesses conditions for the exploitation and utilization of the green energy. On the other hand, Africa is a fast-growing emerging market. Population are growing, cities are booming. Rapid economic growth in Africa drives its demand for energy, which is well ahead of the world average. At the same time, African countries can also support the Paris climate goals and seek for sustainable paths. They need a clean energy to limit their carbon emission. Especially in the present time of crisis, we can see green energy presents a great opportunity and a clear future for the continent. And for the PV plant, usually SunSure supports them with mid and long-term export credit insurance and overseas investment insurance. In Africa, we have supported PV power plant in countries such as South Africa, Senegal, and Cameroon, some of which are invested by the Chinese enterprises, and some of them are invested by the local governments. So we'll give you three cases. And the first one is the standard buyer's credit insurance structure. And SPV acting as the borrower, and its parent company provided repayment guarantee for the transaction, for the financing. This deal is also a standard third-party corporation example. That means its parent company comes from Europe. It's a European company, and the SPV is located in the third country. That means it's a very good example of the third-party corporation. And this cooperation has opened up new opportunities for Chinese and international enterprise, for example, from the US, from Europe. And I think it's a win-win cooperation. And the second case is standard buyer's credit insurance too. But its difference is that the first case is based on the commercial credit, and this one is based on the sovereign guarantee. That means it's a sovereign credit. Ministry of Finance directly acting as the borrower. So it's the same structure as the first case. And the third case is an investment structure. That means Chinese company set up a SPV in the African countries, and then this SPV invest in the local in African countries to, for example, to set up this PV power plant. SunSure provides the investment insurance for this project, and we cover the political risk through our investment insurance policy. But this is these three cases are the standard, the traditional way for SunSure to provide support for the PV project. And lastly, I would like to talk about our outlook on renewable energy sector. We briefly classified all countries in the world that are willing to develop the PV in accordance to the two most important factors affecting the development of PV. One is the light irradiation, and then the second is the supporting policies. As in the chart, you can see that's the first quadrant is countries with with very good light conditions and mature policies like Spain and the United States, which are developed countries with relatively low latitude. They started the PV sector early with rich experience and relatively complete supporting systems. The second quadrant is countries with mature policy, but with ordinary light conditions. These are generally high latitude developed countries. For example, these countries are located in the Western Europe. For example, Germany and the United Kingdom and Italy. The third quadrant is for countries that are not outstanding in both dimensions. They have to develop renewable energy to meet some, maybe their domestic, maybe outside requirements. So they can provide, they will provide high subsidies to quickly stimulate PV investment. And the fourth quadrant is countries with good sunlight, but they have imperfect policies, but they have the great potential for future PV development, such as Mexico, Brazil, Egypt, and other low and middle latitude developing countries. Next, the main influencing factors of light conditions is geographical location and latitude. And the maturity of the policy is mainly related to the development stage of the PV industry. In their initial stage of the PV market, it's greatly necessary to use high returns and high yields to attract investment. After a certain period, the government may begin to reduce subsidies to guide health development of the market. And finally, in a stable market, the policies will become more reasonable, such as the current CFD, that means the contract for difference. This mechanism is rather mature in developed countries, such as the United Kingdom. Judging from the overall development trend of the global PV industry, mature markets are showing a general trend of subsidy removal, marketization, and financial sustainability. Up to now, not only the installed gross capacity of China, but also the output of the PV modules of China's green energy enterprise is ranking #1 globally. Keep acting the supporting role of the enterprise. SunSure are convinced that the successful implication of the green energy project is the result of the cooperation between multinational enterprises, financial institutions, and government agencies. And it's the result of the combination of advantages and joint efforts from all participants. We would like to take this opportunity to call on all parties to join us in strengthening the cooperation, complementing one another's advantages so as to achieve the win-win situation and promote financial integration, unimpeded trade, and people-to-people bond of Belt and Road Initiative. The SunSure will develop various forms of financial platform. We will adapt to the demands of local markets and support foreign and Chinese-funded banks in their participation in green energy cooperation. We will also give full play to our professional advantages by providing credit insurance support for the sector, and essentially welcome the partners and friends from all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chen, for your detailed introduction about Centershore and also its overseas market strategy. You mentioned it's very important, for the companies and also the financial institutions to work together effectively. So this type of effective cooperation is very important. So it would be good later on if you can elaborate on the challenges and opportunities this cooperation among the different actors. Now I would like to invite Mr. Yan Bingzhong. Mr. Yan is the director of the Department of International Cooperation at China Renewable Energy Engineering Institute. He has over 15 years of experience in engaging planning and policy research in the area of hydro and non-hydro renewable energy projects. He's involved in developing China's 12th and 13th five-year plan of hydropower development. And he has conducted lots of research on China's overseas energy activities. So I would like to invite Mr. Yan to give his perspective on the new business model, especially with regards to China's engagement in Africa energy sector.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening in Beijing. Hello, I'm Yan. I'm from China Renewable Energy Engineering Institute. It's an honor to participate in this webinar because I got a code. So in next 10 minutes, I invite my colleague, Mr. Chen, make a presentation for us. It's okay.
Excuse me, could you all see my screen? My slides is okay?
Yes, it's fine.
Okay. It is my pleasure to participate in this meeting, and I would like to give my sincere gratitude to the organizers, as well as the distinguished guests and all the participants. First of all, please allow me to have a brief introduction about our institute, China Renewable Energy Engineering Institute. Our institute, Our institute is a professional technical provider of China's renewable energy industry in terms of policymaking, planning, and engineering review and consulting. Our institutes are interested by the Chinese governments to conduct more than 200 national and industrial standards, and also manage on the 6 industrial management platform, including hydro and wind research center, National Renewable Energy Information Management Center. In terms of international cooperation, we are interested by the Chinese government to conduct a series of specific works on the about 16 intergovernmental energy cooperation mechanisms, including China in G20, in APEC, China and African Union, ASEAN, Arab League, Pakistan, Myanmar, Laos, United Kingdom, Canada, Switzerland, and so on. Among these cooperation mechanisms, those mechanisms involved with the Renewable Energy Corporation accounts for more than half of the total. Next, I would like to briefly describe, give my personal thoughts on renewable cooperation based on the works that we conducted in Africa. As we know that global warming and the deterioration of the overall environment have caused frequent extreme weather and natural disasters, and developing countries, including Africa, are facing increased challenges in environmental protection and development. Promoting renewable energy South-South cooperation would undoubtedly not only meet the pursuit for economic growth, but it also in line with the long-term benefits of environmental protection. Africa is a continent with the largest concentration of developing countries in the world, and China is the largest developing country with the largest economy. China-Africa Renewable Energy Corporation is of great practical significance for deepening South-South cooperation. Then you may ask, what is the status quo of China-Africa Renewable Energy? What are the challenges facing with this cooperation? Do we have any suggestions? In order to answer these questions, just before the 2018 Beijing Summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, our institutes are interested by the National Energy Administration, organized a 2 experts team to conduct research in 6 African countries. We visited more than 30 international organizations, energy authorities, embassies, financial institutions, and energy companies. Through this investigation, we can have a very deeply understanding about answers of these questions. First, what is the current status of the development of renewable energy in Africa? I think it can be summarized as too good and too low. From this figure, it is not hard to see that the endowment of renewable energy resources is good, but the current utilization level is low. Take solar resources, for example. Africa's solar radiation accounts for more than half of the world, but its generation capacity accounts for less than 1%. Second, the prospect for the second, the prospect for the application of renewable energy is good, but the current application scale in Africa is low. According to the statistics of IEA, it is estimated that the renewables will account for approximately half of the world's generation capacity by 2030. But now it's less than a quarter. How about China? The status quo of China's renewable development can be summarized as 1 large, 1 fast, and 1 leading. First, 1 large. China is the world's largest country in the application of renewable energy technology. In 2018, China's renewable energy generation capacity reached 728 gigawatts, accounting for about 1/3 of the world's total. No matter hydro, solar, or wind, the generation capacity ranks first in the world. Second, China is the fastest growing country in the field of renewables. In 2018, China's newly installed renewable energy capacity was 78 gigawatts, an increase of 12% comparing to the previous year, accounting for nearly half of the global newly installed renewable capacity. Third, China has the leading transmission technology for renewable power, which has gradually built a unified large power grid that is interconnected across the country. It is the world's largest direct and alternating current hybrid power grid with a length of more than 42,000 kilometers and the power transmission or conversion capacity for more than 410 million kilowatts. So it is not hard to see that China's 1 big, 1 fast, and 1 lead, and Africa's 2 good and 2 low are well complementary with each other. Say, China's large application scale complements Africa's good resources endowments. China's rapid technological development is complementary to Africa's low level of development, China's leading transmission technology complements the unevenly distributed renewable resources in Africa. How's the cooperation between the two sides? At present, the two sides renewable energy cooperation projects accounts for more than 60% of the total energy cooperation projects. According to statistics, by 2018, China has participated in total 124 renewable generation projects in Africa, including those planned, under construction, and completed projects altogether, with a total installed capacity of more than 21 gigawatts and the contract value of more than $33.8 billion US. Among them, there are 55 hydropower projects accounting for 53% of the total, and the proportion of wind power and PV power are about 10% and 35% respectively. On the whole, the cooperation projects of the two sides have grown steadily in recent years, which has played a significant role in promoting the electricity access of Africa, as well as its economic and social development. However, it is worth noting that more than 85% of these projects are engineering contracting, and such a single mode is not favorable to a long-term sustainable cooperation between the two sides. Here, I have listed some typical cooperation projects of the two sides, which I would like to divide into three categories. The first is those technically challenging projects, including difficult to design and construct. Take Uganda's Kurama hydropower projects, for example. Its total capacity is 600 megawatts, undertaken by Power China, which is designed as a runoff power station with a large-scale underground powerhouse, long-tail raised tunnel, resulting in huge amount of tunnel excavation. The second category is those projects which could play a demonstration role. Take Ethiopia's Adama wind farm project, for example. It is constructed with 51 megawatts in the first phase and 153 megawatts in the second phase. It is the first wind power project built abroad with the utilization of China's standards in design, construction, management, and equipment procurement, effectively promoting technical transfer and cooperation. Another example is Congo's Manono off-grid PV project, which is designed as the electricity mining joint operation model. The plant provides electricity to the nearby mining companies, which in turn provides reliable income for the normal operation of the plant. The third category of the projects is those multi-energy complementary projects, which could well fit into the local condition, mainly including hydro wind, hydro solar, wind solar complementary projects, and etc. These projects could make full use of local resources condition to enhance project's economy while generating electricity. Next, I would like to talk about the challenges that are faced by the China-Africa and Renewable Energy Corporation. The first is about the political games hinder technical cooperation. Second is that overspeed of construction, which results in the surplus of markets in many countries. The third is that large proportion of the EPC projects, this single model is not favorable for the long-term development of the corporation. The first is that the financial difficulties, financing difficulties, limiting the scale of the corporation. I think that the last speaker has also given many examples in this field. The fifth is that it is difficult to realize equipment manufacturing localization due to lack of professional and technical personnel and the weak infrastructure, as well as the undeveloped, unfavorable business environment. Last is that I think this is very important, that many think tanks of China have not taken roots in Africa. So mailing deliverables made by think tanks of China fail to, it's difficult to play a very good guidance for the practical works. Our suggestions that include also 6 aspects. First is to strengthen strategic planning, strengthen capacity building, promoting the advancement of think tanks, and create innovative cooperation models, strengthen financial innovation, and establish a green project library. Due to the time limit, I will not elaborate on this in depth here. If you are interested in it, we can communicate and exchange further through after this meeting, and you can get our contact message through the organizer. Next, I would like to introduce one significant work that we were conducted, which is the establishment of China African Energy Cooperation Center. This proposal is put forward by our institute to National Energy Administration, and in the 2018 Beijing Summit of China, Beijing Summit on the Forum of China and African Cooperation, this proposal has actually been included in the achievements documents of these summits, which are reviewed by President Xi Jinping, which are deliberated and passed by the President Xi Jinping and all the state leaders of Africa. Now we have our institute are interested by the National Energy Administration to conduct the research reports of the China Renewable China Africa Energy Cooperation Center construction plan. Now this plan has been finished, and it is planned. It's originally planned that the center will be established in this year. However, due to the COVID-19, the plan has been postponed to the next year. This center is designed as is mainly designed as 4 platforms. First is platform for dialogue and exchange. The second is a platform for project incubation. The third is a platform for increasing the capacity building of African countries. The fourth is a platform for joint research. This is my presentation. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yan. We have received lots of questions, and I would like we have some general questions, and we have a lot of questions for Mr. Chen Shaoqi. So I would like to invite Mr. Chen Shaoqi for first round of response. The first question is very much on how do Chinese energy stakeholders perceive and countermeasure risks associated with the power generation projects on the African continent? And what are the key criteria used by Chinese financial institutions in selecting energy projects to be funded in China? And to what extent the impact on climate change is considered? So this question can actually for both, Mr. Chen and perhaps Dr. Ma. And also the third question, our NGO is working on renewable energy in Senegal. How can we get, how can we develop a partnership with your company? And so that's a very interesting question. The last question for Mr. Chen Shaoqi is, what are the interest rate on loans from Chinese banks in comparison to loans from other international banks? Are these loans creating economic dependency? Thank you. Martin, can you please send the other questions to the speakers so we can accelerate because we have limited time. Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Chen.
Okay, thank you very much. And And for the African market, I think African market is a traditional market for SunSure. We have done very good job in this market. We have support many projects, for example, in the traditional hydropower power plant and the coal-based power plant and road, this kind of infrastructure construction and this kind of infrastructure project. But for the new energy, I think, especially for the PV project in this continent, I think it's still in the initial project period. Just mentioned, we support many export of the PV modules to this continent, to this market. But as for the project, we never supported too many projects. Just to mention, we support projects in the South Africa, in the Senegal and Cameroon. We support with our traditional buyer's credit insurance, overseas investment insurance corporation insurance, and the traditional buyer's credit, that means medium long-term export credit insurance. We take the commercial risk and the political risk, and we insure policy to make the project bankable. And with the help of sound insurance policy, the bank can provide the financing for the project. And under the overseas investment insurance, we cover the political risk, and the commercial risk is taken by the sponsor, maybe by the shareholder. So I think, just I mentioned, this is a very good market with so much potential, especially in the new energy field. I think we will attach great importance in this continent in the near future. And as for the banks, I just mentioned in that slide, SunSure has already cooperated with more than 250 banks from China, from Europe, from other, maybe from the US. That means we maybe from the Japan, from the Korea. We cooperate with them. Why we cooperate with them? We want to provide a rather affordable financing for the importer, for the sponsor. That's very important because in China traditionally our domestic banks interest rate is don't have so much competitiveness comparing with the international bank. So we try to cooperate with banks from China, from other countries, especially from the developing countries. We don't have any difference when we cooperate with the Chinese domestic bank and the foreign bank. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, maybe I answered. Can I maybe answer this question? Maybe.
I think we have lost the speaker. Let me go to Power China now, and I would like to invite Dr. Ma to respond to some questions on Power China's engagement in Africa. Actually, several questions are on community engagement. And question or comments from Vanessa. I'm keen to know what Power China are doing to ensure that their projects are making positive social impacts in the African countries they work in. How do they ensure employment and education, as well as access to the energy they are producing? Another question on community engagement. How does the company ensure community participation and engagement? Are there channels for projects affected persons, communities to send their complaints? If any, how are those handled? Also, other questions very much on the challenges and opportunities for China's renewable industry in Africa. How the situation varies between countries, have, between resource-rich countries and the resource-poor countries. And also, participants would like to know, the projects that Power China has developed in Senegal. So over to you, Dr. Ma.
Yes, I can hear you.
Good.
I will try to answer your question. Yes, our Power China is a construction company, but in the past years we have spent a lot of things to ensure the community can engage in our project. Here I want to give some give you examples in the Morocco. In my presentation, I mentioned the CSP project in the Morocco. You know the project the renewable project, when it's constructed, it need a lot of workers to participate in the participate in construction. So during the construction of the project, we hear a lot of we provide jobs for the local community. This give locals many opportunity to learn some new technology from the project and improve their salaries. Once time I heard a story that a local person, he was hired by our company, and he got a good salary and improved their they improved their lives. They have feel very happy. This is just an example, but I also want to tell you about another level, from the high level. Power China has a strategy. We have our own strategy. The second one is the localization. In recent years, we have tried our best to achieve the localization. The localization means hearing the more local people to our company, and make the local become our employee of our company. And another sector is another meaning is to provide more opportunity for the locals, give the chance to give the chance to join the project and get money for the project. Actually, now if you in our headquarters of Power China, you can also see some foreigners in our business, in our headquarters. That means Power China, Power China in recent years, we try our best to achieve the localization. So I believe you and I, you score and our goal and are the same. Hello.
Hi, Jim. Can I add to that question?
Hello.
To that question?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, and we would also like to give his response to this question.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is a good question. I think there are a bunch of questions about community engagement. I think the first is that obviously Chinese companies as constructors and investors will have a lot of things to do to engage with the local communities. But as I said, it is not just the constructor's job to do so. And there are a lot of communications and a lot of other kind of engagement or communications should be done by other actors, including financiers, including jointly with local governments, because it's particularly under the EPC contracts. And the project developers also play a hugely important role to kind of coordinate among all the stakeholders. So it's a joint effort that constructors and project developers and financiers shall do it together, and shall share the responsibilities and jointly together, do work together. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I would like to invite Mr. Yan. We have some questions for you and your company. What is the main financing and investment model mostly utilized for China-Africa green power generation projects? And what renewable energy resource is mostly exploited by Chinese energy developers in Africa, and why? And I will come back to Wei later. So, Mr. Yan, please. Mr. Yan Bingzhong.
Okay. I'm here.
Because Mr. Yan got a very serious cold, so I will represent him to answer these questions. Regarding the investment models, as we know that there are lots of models has been conducted here, but currently, I think according to our statistics, the most utilized model is the BOT model, say the build, operation, and transfer model. Because as we know that for most of African countries, they are less developed countries. They have the resources, but they don't have the money. But for Chinese side, we have the technology, we have the money. We need to help them to build these hydropower stations, wind and solar. So build, operation, and transfer is a good way to help these less developed countries could have their own power infrastructures without the huge investments in the initial of these projects. So this is a very good way to solve the finance problems. And as we and according to our statistics, over more than 150 projects, 150 China-Africa cooperation projects. It's about 80% of the projects are conducted in this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yan. Now I would like to invite Wei Shen to respond to the following questions. Do you think the Chinese investment in Africa will help African nations adapt to and mitigate climate change? What's China's interest in lowering carbon emissions across Africa? when China itself is recorded as having among the highest carbon dioxide emissions in the world. Over to you, Wei.
Well, regarding the first question is that just follow up on the previous question is that the major significant section of Chinese investment is in hydro power stations, but increasingly it's on renewables like wind and solar. So does that help? Yeah, obviously, but it's a relative term because in terms of absolute emissions that these projects can do to reduce carbon emissions in Africa could be, in absolute terms, limited, but it prevents many African countries to get kind of a carbon lock-in into the high carbon or fossil fuel energy scenarios. So that is the kind of for the future. It will have kind of significant climate benefits. But because of that, at the current stage, Africa emission is more or less about less than 2% of the world's total emission. So obviously, it's not just about cut current emissions, but prevent carbon lock-in in the future scenario. And the second is that China is as I said, the situation or the trend of Chinese investment in Africa is hugely influenced by its domestic policy. So we do now know that China actually announced several pledges around climate change. 2060 carbon neutrality is just one of them, but there are kind of a new green BRI, common future of humanity and so on. There are different initiations, different discourse, different narratives developed at the same time, and which is not just concerning about reducing carbon emissions in China, within China, but also developing green projects and sustainable projects around the world. So I see that there's a kind of we are at a gate of significant change of what China has been doing previously in the previous decades as a world's factory, and also kind of highly inefficient economic structure and highly inefficient energy structure and so on, towards a more sustainable and future, not just domestically, but around the globe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wei-Shen, and thanks for everyone's participation. And unfortunately, we are running out of time. And this is just the first of our seminar series on China's engagement in Africa energy sector. We will have another seminar on China's engagement from African perspective. Now, I would like to invite the main organizer, Sifi, to give a very brief introduction about the seminar. Over to you, Sifi. Sifi, are you there?
Maybe, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. No, we cannot hear you. So some participants have asked whether we can share PowerPoint slides and also the contact.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, but please be very brief.
If you can hear me, that's absolutely fine. Just as you said, we will have a follow-up webinar on this on the 17th of November. We have researchers who work on African renewable energy, particularly solar and wind, and also policy professionals from the public and non-governmental organizations. So we have lined up 4 excellent speakers for the 17th of November who will be sharing their perspective, particularly from African angle. So don't miss the date, and please save the date. And my colleague Martin will send the invitations to you. So we'll look forward to seeing you on the 17th of November. Thank you.
Thank you, Sifi, and thank you everyone for your participation. Martin will get back to you on the contact details of the speakers and also their PowerPoint slides. Thank you. Bye.